Hi guys, Bill again. I enjoyed reading some of your comments on the last wee history skit that I did. Now amongst them, my good mate Betty Swallocks made a crack to the effect of, "Is this why jocks have such a bad attitude?" Now if you're not a Brit, this whole Scottish English thing might be a bit of a mystery to you. See, Betts has got a point. There's an awful lot of Scots who blame the rain on the English if they thought they'd get away with it. But there's a lot of Englishmen who think along very similar lines. See, I lived in England for about 23 years. You would not believe some of the things that I used to get called. I want you to look up FRISP, F-R-I-S-P. Find out what that means before you come crying to me about being called a Sassenach or a Yank or Taff, Paddy, whatever. In the context of a national rivalry, it's fairly harmless. I'm pretty sure that nobody has been refused employment on either side of a non-existent border because of their accent. But the language that we use in these little word games are quite useful because they're an example of a mild form of othering. Now, unless you've got markedly different features or skin colour or culture to the majority of your neighbours, the chances are that you've never experienced bigotry personally, and that's a good thing. However, bigotry not only exists, it's a fairly common feature of human existence. Now, in the West we make some fairly major efforts to avoid it as much as we possibly can. The reason being it's divisive and it's unhelpful, as well as just being downright rude. But still, it's easy to do, and it's easy to find yourself doing. Now there's a link down the low bar to a Network Q video. Check on that. It'll give you a much better take than I could manage on it. The process is one of making a them group and an us group, where they have a lot of negative qualities that simply aren't found in us. We're normal, well-balanced people. They have all sorts of imaginary hang-ups and problems, and they bring it all on themselves. Now, a very short walk down this road finds us in a place where we've got markedly different expectations from the two groups. To go back to that Scottish English thing, while I lived in England, there was an expectation that the Scots should support the English at every turn, especially with regards to sporting events. Now that's no hardship, it's something that I would have done anyway, and it's something that I do now. I live 100 miles from the border, there's no pressure on me to do it. But there was a widespread disapproval, almost disgust, shown to any Scot or Welshman who didn't choose to act the way I do and support the English. Now, the problem with that is there's an extreme reluctance amongst my workmates especially, but amongst the general population as well, to support the other British national teams and sportsmen's efforts. Yeah, there were even newspaper articles running down national teams and sportsmen prior to events. And you always get your workmates chummily starting a discussion with the old, no offence mate, but... And then they give your nation a really good verbal kicking. It's a terrific double standard. Now the person that's being treated this way, the person being othered, doesn't really have a reply. You either agree with every single insult, or you get labelled as one of them, one of the others. And the values of the person that's doing the others, doing the othering, are self-justifying. You know, not all others are like that. You know, so-and-so agrees with, insert your bigoted comment here. Any attempt to correct a misperception or a misrepresentation of your other group merely confirms the bias. And pretty soon you can assign distinct personality traits to the entire group. You know, the Scots supposedly are very hot-tempered, for instance, or the Welsh have a fondness for wool. There comes a point just a little bit further down that road where the others' many negative qualities are just accepted as a fact. And the others even begin to suspect that it must be the case. Otherwise, why would all the normal, decent people be saying it if it wasn't true? And that's the point where an amusing, petty rivalry starts to become a major problem. If the Scots, say, simply accepted that they were more temperamental than normal people, then legislation that was enacted to deal with that would be welcomed rather than fought. It would be a natural progression from that to keep them away from vulnerable groups within our society. And when discussions about international Scots-English conflict were held, naturally those discussions should concentrate on how all sides could help the Scots with an antisocial behaviour, while supporting the English victims of that behaviour. Now, hopefully, when I put it like that, most people are going to have a few concerns. Well, at least until Vinny starts rebuilding that wall anyway. But try putting male and female into the little rant. See, people, if we're not at that stage yet, we're not far off it. Men are always the responsible party. Men are the problem that needs solving. Men's attitudes have to change. Men are the others. Now, the Scots have made some efforts to challenge the negative press. I mean, we even had a Scottish Prime Minister flying St George's crosses from his limousine. But that's a trivial thing. It's easily addressed. There's no barriers to the Scots in education or employment, no one-sided expectation that the Scots should show a greater physical and financial responsibility in every British endeavour. That's not the case with gender. Men are expected to work longer and harder, but those same men are supposed to claim less reward for those efforts. That pay gap has to close. Men are expected to step aside from the best positions to ensure that equality is seen to be done. We need more female managers. We need more female directors. We've got to smash those glass ceilings. Men can continue to serve in the filthiest, most dangerous occupations, of course. That's theirs. They can have that. Men are receiving less health care. The budget that's assigned to that care is remarkably less. People, I could go on, but the truth is self-evident. The male half of Western society has been othered for at least a generation. Now the question is, what are we going to do about it? You've got to support men's rights, people. They're basic human rights. Laters, guys.